What's up, Black Girls in Media family? Welcome to another episode. My name is Shelby Smith.
And my name is Kelly Ray.
And today we have a very special guest, near and dear to the Black Girls in Media family, Miss Zayna Allen. So,
hey guys.
On today's episode, we are talking about having a seat at the table. And Ms. Zayna Allen has had many seats at many tables. So she is the one to talk to about this topic. We generally wanted to start off with just telling us a little bit about your experience and the seats and tables you've been at.
I've been working in media for like 4 years now. And I will say that I have fought, can I curse? I fought my ass off. I fought my ass off to get to every table that I have sat at, or I had to pull up a chair myself, or I had to create a place setting for myself, put a mat down for myself with some forks and some knives and a cup, in everything that I did. And so I've worked at so many different outlets, even small ones. I've worked at small stuff like city town things that I did. I mainly have worked with a lot of startups, and startup culture is very interesting. I will say startup culture is very interesting because there's so many things that people can get away with at a startup, and so many things that aren't regulated. That's the best way to put it. Because in a big company, there's higher ups, there's HRs, there's people who oversee certain things, who can check someone on something. Nobody is sitting there unchecked, right? But with startups, even like really, really, really small ones, like somebody wants to put together a web series, even with that, you can get treated like any other way. Anything can happen because it's really just on somebody's word, on somebody's dime, on somebody's just on their time. It's really all on one person. So yeah.
Yeah, I know with startups, they don't have the HR, the functioning of like these huge corporations where you can report things. So I totally get that with the startup company and just the culture in general.
Yeah.
So we recently saw that on LinkedIn, you had a post about how you were treated unfairly at one of your previous jobs, and talking about seats at the table. And you just mentioned a little bit about culture and how you strive for every seat you were at. Can you tell us a little bit about or any experience that you've had where you were treated unfairly?
So in one of my positions, I was in a situation where I felt abused. That's the best way to put it. I felt very abused. I felt attacked. I felt targeted in literally every turn. I was in that position for about a year and some change. And I was one of the people who like helped it grow, and it got to a point where the person who was my overseer, I guess, took a lot of stuff out on me. And it kind of seemed like this person was beating me down to make me small. And it kind of got to a point where I felt small, or I felt like what I do isn't worth it. The work that I put in, the time that I put in isn't valuable. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Honestly, it's such a terrible feeling, especially when you're so passionate about the work that you do, for somebody to make you feel like everything you do is wrong. There was not a single day where I was on this person's good side. And it got to a point where I was let go. And I had to sit back and think about, my entire time there, the treatment that I received there. And a lot of things turn back to me being somebody who doesn't take nothing from nobody, right? So even though this person did break me down, I did not let this person know that I was broken down. And no matter what, I always stood up for myself, and I always made it very known about the things that I felt weren't correct, weren't right, or weren't something that would work with the project that I was given. And it kind of turned to seem like I was being the typical angry Black woman stereotype, for one. Two, I am not somebody that's going to kiss somebody's ass. Like I've never been that person. So a lot of the people that I worked with were always up this person's ass, like, oh yeah, laughing at all the jokes and da-da-da-da-da. And I was never mean, but I was never about to suck up to you or make you feel like you're the best person walking, like you're Midas or something like that. I'm not going to do that. And I think simply just overall in work culture and wherever you work, whether it's in media or in corporate, anything like that, I think Black people overall just always have this stigma or this, maybe the stereotype, I'll say stereotype, that we don't like nobody. And it might be true, it might not be true, but it doesn't matter. Like if I don't think that my work performance should be altered or changed, or somebody should look at me differently because I'm not laughing it up and I'm kikiing with everybody, but I'm doing my job. So I think that was another thing. It kind of seemed like my attitude was an issue when I know for a fact that it wasn't. I just know that there's things that I stand up for. There's things that I will not back down on. It's not that I was being a difficult employee, but I'm being an employee who stands up for herself and won't take nothing from nobody.
So Zayna, what would you say to someone who's kind of going through a similar situation, but they're under contract, right? So many media jobs and media positions, you have these 2 to 3 year contracts. And so you're kind of just stuck with this person that you don't really, want to work with. So how would you advise someone to kind of, still stand their ground and, document all of the mistreatment that they're facing, but also still having to work with this person?
Well, from before we even get into what you should do if you're in that situation, what I will say is that you need to read before you get into that situation. That's really important. And even in my situation, I was in a predicament where I didn't read. I was so excited. You know how they say about the music artists who don't read their contracts and they end up in like 360 deals and they end up getting like just screwed over. This is the same thing, like in media or in I would say media for right now, because it's the same type of stuff. Like any company that you work for that makes you sign a contract or an NDA, that means they own you. They own whatever content you put out. They own your image. They own your name. And then on top of that, most of the time you can't say anything. You can't say anything about this type of stuff that you're doing with them. You can't take the stuff that you did there and share it somewhere else. Like it's a lot. So you need to read and you need to negotiate. But if you are in that position where you done did all that, you ain't listen to me, and you done got into a position, unfortunately, I would say to stick it out, but don't give up, and don't put yourself in a position where future you will regret it. So don't do something where future you will regret. And that can be anything. Don't let someone bully you. That's number one. So don't be in a position where somebody bullies you and you allow it. You allow them to change who you are. You allow them to change the way you think about yourself. You allow them to change the type of work that you do. Things like that. Like, don't allow someone to bully you. Now, you can also be just a bad employee. That's also a reality. You can also be a bad employee, but in most cases, not most cases, but in a lot of cases, some people are just mean. Some people are mean. Some people are jealous. And these mean, jealous people are the people who employ you. Some people don't want to see you succeed more than they have, especially for us younger people when we're working at companies with such a large range of ages. And the person who oversees you or oversees the entire company is kind of doing the same thing as you or something like that, but you seem to be succeeding much more than that person. That comes from a place of jealousy where they're just like, all right, well, I'm about to just bag on this person, you know? So yeah, that's just basically my advice. I do say to stick it out, especially because you can't really break your contract, but don't let them punk you. Don't let them punk you. You are still a strong person. You are still you at the end of the day. And I'm like, with jobs, with any job, they can replace you. They will replace you. They don't care about you. They don't care about the things they did to you. They don't care about the things that that happened to you at home. They will replace you. So everything you do, you need to keep in mind you. You need to keep yourself in mind with everything that you do, because the only person who got you is you. Okay, so
Right.
And so you mentioned, kind of making sure like you do your homework before you sign these contracts, right? But a lot of time we get into these positions and, you don't really know the workplace environment culture. And so I guess my next question would be, what do you suggest to someone who is, they're looking for jobs right now, or they, just did an interview with somebody and they are trying to figure out if this place is a right fit for them?
Again, do your research. Glassdoor is an amazing thing, to just see how other people who have worked at the company, how they view the people that work there, the type of work that you do. Yeah, do your research. And then when it comes down to a contract, some people don't always have lawyer friends or someone who could oversee it, but just make sure your mama looking at it, your daddy looking at it, your best friend checking it out. Like, even if you don't know anybody who has a law background, you still need to get a couple opinions on it, because somebody might know a term that you didn't know. And you always have to, negotiate. If some things don't seem right to you, but this person really wants you on the team, negotiate. And the worst they could do is say no.
I first really want to applaud you for your resilience throughout this whole situation and circumstance. You're just showing the strength that Black women have to exude on a day-to-day basis, regardless of what happens to them. So I applaud you for that. And I'm also really sorry about the circumstance that happened. And just know that greater is coming.
And it's just, I'm not sorry about it though. It took me a while to get to that point. The first week that I was let go, I really was out of it. I didn't talk to anybody. People were texting me, people were calling me. I was not responding. I made my couple of posts. And even with that, when I made my couple of posts, I regretted it to a certain extent. I regretted it mainly because people were in my business that I didn't want in my business. Like, I had my aunties and uncles and my mama and them sending me jobs for like the post office. And I'm like, child, do you know me? I'm like, do you know me? I ain't going to nobody post office. I'm gonna work it out. I'm gonna tough it out. Don't worry about me. I got me. But then there was people who I don't even know ask me, oh, what happened? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, y'all never even hit me up before all this. Now you want to know what happened? All up in you in my business. Don't do that. And so that's initially why I regretted it. But I can go back onto that later on. But in that first week, I was depressed. And I have a history with depression, so that doesn't surprise me. But the way that I felt in that week, I've been heartbroken before by men, by loved ones, by people like that. I've been sad before. That was something I've never experienced in my life. Feeling like my purpose was incorrect. That's how I felt. I felt like I've been chasing the wrong dream, and that the thing that I envisioned for myself isn't real. isn't true, it's something that I made up in my head. Ooh, I'm gonna try not to cry, y'all.
Let it out if need be.
Safe
I mean, that's kind of where I felt. That's where I was. I just seemed it just seemed like, where do I go from here? And a lot of people were saying, girl, it's all right. Da, 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 da. And I appreciate those people, but I don't think anybody truly knew what I felt, because I don't see anything other than media for me. So even when I was going through that, I was like, well, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do? There's if this isn't for me, where else am I gonna go? I felt like, I mean, even the financial things, that wasn't that big of a deal. I had somebody tell me in college a long time ago not to worry about money, because money always finds a way. And I've never worried about money since then. But even that, sometimes it would sneak in, like, how am I paying my rent? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? But it was mainly just, I felt like I was floating in nothingness for a long time. I felt like I am literally just here on this earth just to be here. I'm not there anymore. I'm not in that place. It took me a minute to get out of there, but when someone is really like pushing you down, putting you down like that, and trying to make you feel small, especially for someone like me who I don't give up, but I will cry. You know what I'm saying? I don't get defeated, but I will stop for a second and be like, start throwing elbows just in the air, just because I can get hurt very easily. I won't show it, but I can. So when somebody's doing that to me, even like there will be times when this person, when my boss called me, cursing me out, and I would get off the phone and break down, because I was like, what did I do to deserve this? I don't deserve that from anybody. At the end of the day, it's still respect. And I didn't deserve to be disrespected. So yes, back to the original point, I am not sorry about it. I'm happy, honestly, that I'm not in that position anymore. Because again, I was being abused. And although, I don't have a position at the moment that I would like, there is never a door that closes and then another door won't open. So I'm very hopeful and very sure that my next door is something greater, because that wasn't even great. That position I was in wasn't even a great position in the first place.
Yeah. And you brought up an interesting point, because one of the things that I've heard is just like, people don't leave jobs, they leave people. So, sometimes you might really, you might like what you're doing, but your boss or your supervisor is just awful. It makes you, really not like your job. And it's so crazy how that can make you question yourself, even though you were so excited to get this job, even though this is what you love to do, you love being in media in this circumstance. But the fact that a person, a supervisor who's supposed to be there to help guide and mold you, would make you start questioning your purpose, right? Like that's just so crazy to me.
Yeah, it was that was a lot. That was a lot. And somebody actually once told me, during my time, everybody was in my business. One of my aunties, on Facebook, because that's where they be, said to me, sometimes God knows that you won't leave a bad situation, so he forces you to leave. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I got out of the place that I was in. If I hadn't been let go, I would have continued to take that person's crap. And I'm very happy. Again, as I said, I'm very happy that I'm in a position now where I'm no longer in that position. Because I would have been like, okay, it's a check. I'm gonna just keep taking these hits, keep taking these jabs, I'm gonna keep taking these punches to the chest, and I'm gonna eat those. But I shouldn't be eating those. Like, I shouldn't even be in a position where I have to feel like someone who hired me at that is making me is beating me up. Like I shouldn't be in that position. So yeah.
Well, anybody watching this or that knows you from Black Girls in Media and what you did at your previous jobs know that you are a very talented individual. So I'm glad that you were able to keep the faith and have such a positive reaction to such a negative circumstance. We really want to get into a little bit about your persona as a whole, and how that has elevated you to different seats at different tables that you've been at, and how you kind of navigate being yourself, but also being in the workspace. You talked a little bit about being contracted. So how do you navigate your personality and your freedom with the contract that a company might have you under?
Okay, so one thing about me, one thing about me is that I'm gonna always be me. And it took me a while to get there. And there are times where I don't think my journey is finished to get to being me. I mean, I'm only 25, so I think that life got some lessons in store for me. But again, if there's one thing about me is that I'm gonna be me. So and unapologetically at that. Again, I know you have to censor yourself, especially if there's certain things in a contract that say that you can't say these types of things or these types of things. For example, Overtime, the sports network, right? Their employees, which I think is crazy to me. Oh my God, their employees, their talent are literally owned by them. And I say that because like, if you look at their Instagram pages, for example, or their Twitter pages, like say I worked for Overtime, my page would have to turn into Overtime Zayna. And everything that I post has to be overtimey. And I think that's crazy. But even in those situations, like you have to censor yourself, of course, because now you are literally speaking on behalf of that company. So yeah, you have to censor yourself based off of the position that you have. If it's worth it, you got to see if it's worth it. That's another thing. You really got to balance out, if something is worth you going the extra mile to change who you are. I don't believe in changing who I am. And I've always been that way, even when I was doing it wrong. Like even when back in the day, my mom would say, oh, you can't put that on Instagram, girl, take that down. Like, I don't post it because I won't post it. And whoever got something to say about it, they could say it to me, okay? Even though that was wrong, I shouldn't be posting some of the things that I was posting, but I've always been that way. So you have to really see if something is worth that compromise. Not everything is worth that compromise. Not every position is worth that. Like if you have a small company and somebody, this small company tell you not to post it, child, I'll find another job because I don't know who you think you is. I don't know. You ain't BuzzFeed. You know what I'm saying? You ain't now this. You ain't Cocoa Butter. You ain't. I'm out. I don't know who you thought you was, but I am out. Yes, child. So yeah, I think just navigating it and making sure you're making the right decisions is it's all circumstantial. You just got to make sure that what you're doing aligns with you.
And speaking of posting, with so much going on right now with the election, so much going on, with race and Black Lives Matter, sometimes when you are in these positions, especially media positions, they try to tell you, oh, you're supposed to be neutral as a journalist, so you can't post, politics, or you can't post things about Black Lives Matter and the protests and stuff like that. And so I guess, what do you say to someone who is kind of going through that right now, where they feel like, this is something that weighs heavy on their heart. This is something that they really want to talk about, but their company is silencing them.
You just gotta breathe out. And I say that because I was just watching something, Zuri Hall. She's a Black woman on E, something like that. She's the host of American Gladiator, right? Or one of those type of shows. And she's an amazing Black woman who's made it and is still making it. She just did a panel, and she was talking about how during the Charlottesville riots, I don't know if you guys remember those, was when those white guys was walking outside with tiki torches and stuff like that. She was saying that when she was on air, she voiced her opinion about it, and she did not care what the viewers thought. She did not care what her job thought, because because it's not something that's controversial. Black rights overall, it shouldn't be something that's taboo. Should not be something that is, oh, you got to keep that on the hush hush. You know what I'm saying? You can't say nothing about that. You have to stay It's not about staying neutral. That's not a neutral thing to talk. That's not something that should be neutral. The rights of Black people overall, no matter where you work, are important. That's humanitarianism. That's not something where you have to pick sides. Where are you picking sides? I can't grasp outlets and companies who say that we cannot get involved in these types of things. You have to stay neutral, because that doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense. It's like saying humans overall can't get oxygen. What? That's literally how we breathe. What? So if you say Black people, or if you're trying to shut me up for saying that Black people deserve rights, what? I'm still a human. Like, this makes no sense. So me saying my opinion on it shouldn't be anything that should terminate my job. And even Zori was saying, she didn't care. She was like, if they don't like it, if my job doesn't like it, then obviously I shouldn't be here. And that's what I'm saying. And to conclude my point, if somebody's in a situation like that, where your job is telling you like to stay neutral, you need to get out. I was in a position actually where, and it's kind of unrelated, kind of is still related. I was in a small company as well. So one thing about me is I'm gonna keep a job. So I was just thinking about that. I was literally just thinking of that when I was getting ready. Zayna, keep a job, Alan. Because even now that I'm unemployed, I'm not unemployed. I always got 3 or 4 jobs, always. So I was once in a job towards the beginning of the current Black Lives Matter situation, where the riots started, and it was really just focused on Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd at the time. And I was in a company who I did a web series with, and the owner is from Africa. He is Liberian, right? And he said, first of all, I was saying we need to say something. Like, we have this platform. We need to say that, we stand with these people, or we stand because it's our community. Like, our web series is based off of Black people. So like, who are we to not say anything? And this person was just like, okay, how do we market that properly? How can we align that with this show? I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like, what is wrong with you? That does not matter. The show, it does not matter. Black people are out here getting killed. So after going back and forth for quite some time, I might add, this person said, after we came to a conclusion that we're going to post something, this person said, well, honestly, I don't get any of this. I'm like, I know you're not about to be that African stereotype. I just know you're not. And they continue to say, I don't get any of this because this type of stuff wouldn't happen in Africa or Liberia, one or the other. Either way, it's still like, what? He was saying, the riots don't make sense. All this stuff, none of this stuff would happen in Africa. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go. And I left. I was down with those people since 2016, and it's 2020. And in that instant, I said, okay, I'm out. Because, and it also sucks because that person was a friend of mine too. Aside from business, that person was a friend of mine. And I can't work with somebody who doesn't care about the struggles that I go through as a Black American. Even though, this person came from Africa, you're still a Black American. So, but even besides that, if you don't care about the struggle that I go through as a Black American, I cannot be here because you don't care about me. And I do not, and you don't care about us. I can't stand with the company who doesn't care about us. So yeah, that's, you just gotta go. You just got to go if you're in a position like that. Strategically go. I wouldn't say be like, all right, I'm out, and then don't have no money, don't have anything, but strategically go. If you know that you set, and if they say some crazy stuff about being a Black person overall, all right, well, I got a couple months saved up, I'm out.
Yeah. Strategically go. That's about to be our word. Strategically go. And speaking of going, we only have about 2 or 3 minutes left in this podcast, but we think we need to do a part 2, right, Kels?
Yes.
Yeah.
So part 2 on the way. But before we close, if there's a one word of advice that you would give Zayna, what would you say to our audience?
Don't psych yourself out. I say this a lot. Don't imposter syndrome is real. Don't psych yourself out of any opportunity, and go for literally everything. And because literally the worst that can happen is you get a no, or you get I didn't like that. You keep going. That's literally my biggest word of advice. If anybody else asks me, I'm gonna say the same thing. Is literally don't psych yourself out and take every chance that is given to you.
Yes.
That is great wisdom. And that's the episode. Again, we look forward to this part 2.
Yes.
Zayna.
Thank you.
Make sure you follow Black Girls in Media, the podcast, at BGIM Podcast, and check out the YouTube video of this episode if you're interested in the visual. Again, you can follow me at Shelbs D. Smith.
You can follow me at It's Kelly Ray.
Oh, you can follow me at Zayna the Brand.
And thank you again, guys. We're so excited for next week's episode. See